Hey guys, so just thought I'd come on Northern Exile, which is the new channel, to basically go over a few things. Now, one thing I'm always asked when I'm just going around doing my normal thing in the hobby of Warhammer 40,000 is, how do you play Grey Knights? Bit of background, I've played Grey Knights now for upwards of 10 years, in all different systems, all different games, all different types of missions, and I've got to say they are easily my favourite faction in Warhammer 40,000 beyond doubt. The background lore is outstanding for Grey Knights. It's probably one of the coolest things GW have actually come up with in terms of ideas, in that they're kind of original in a really weird way. And by that I mean, like, everyone knows what Ultramarines are, the Space Romans, okay? Everyone knows what Drakkar are, Dark Eldar are, they're Dark Elves in space. Everyone knows what Eldar are, they're Elves in space. Whereas Grey Knights, they're actually a mishmash of different ideas and legends. It's basically a mixture between old heraldic knights in new power armour, as we're seeing here, and knightly ordered names, you know, oaths of moment, quests, things like that, linked into it's kind of like a weird, almost Christian, you know, Knights Templar zealotry, but with a cooler head. So if you see people like the Black Templars who are completely insane and are completely dogmatic in their ways, the Grey Knights are above that. They're beyond that. They are open to suggestions, they're open to new ways of fighting, which is what I love about them. Now, this video is not professionally made, just as an aside. It's not going to be your, you know, a complete overview of the game of Warhammer 40,000. I've played it a lot, and I love it. I love 8th edition. I love what they've done to the Grey Knights. And to be honest with you, this is just a rough overview of the Grey Knight units that I use in my games and how I use them. This is for people who have already asked me in real life, so I've said I'd put a video on my new channel for them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. By the way, if you're listening to the music, it's by Seven Dust, and it's the album Kill the Floor, which is an absolutely awesome album, and really good to play 40k to as well. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Have a nice drink of tea there. So, I have my special edition Codex in my hand, which is really lovely Codex actually. The artwork on the front is really stellar, really, really cool. Now let's get into it. So first, I'm going to take you through an overview of all the unit and how I use them in the game. So feel free to take my advice and disregard it. If you think you can do it better, that's completely fine. This is not a be-all, end-all tactic for the Grey Knights. I'm not saying I know how to play the game better than anyone else. Let's just get that out of there now. You'll probably spot flaws in my tactics. You'll probably spot things that maybe I haven't thought of. Then please comment, please tell me. If you've discovered things about Grey Knights that you think are cool that I haven't mentioned, then throw it in the comment section, let me know. But for now, let's carry on with the Grey Knights. So the first unit we're going to be discussing that I use, actually I'll give you a brief overview of what I do first. So to me, Grey Knights are all about speed. They're all about closing with the enemy incredibly quickly and capitalising on that first strike to be as absolutely critical as possible. Now, where people often fall down with Grey Knights is that they see the power armour, they see the cool weaponry, and they read the lore, which is a big mistake, even though the lore is amazing. They play them like Space Marines. That is the big drawback. I used to play them, I used to be beaten quite a lot by different armies as Grey Knights, because I played them as Space Marines. I played them as, you know, these people who can take a hit and keep on going. Now, whilst that is true, the points values of Grey Knights in the new system means that you will be under the cosh quite severely in terms of numbers constantly. You will always be outnumbered. And so you have to find ways around that. That's why 40k is so cool, because every single faction has its disadvantages and its advantages. The Grey Knight advantages is that they're pretty much great at everything they choose to do, and they're amazing in close combat. But they're low on numbers, they're very elite. If one of them dies, you're going to feel it. So the best thing to do, for me, is to get out the headspace of playing as Space Marines. Get out of the headspace. You're not playing as Ultramarines, you're not playing as Space Wolves, you're not playing as Dark Angels, you are playing as Grey Knights. There is not very many of you, and you are the Vector Strike, you are the Alpha Strike, you are in and out in the blink of an eye. And that's what we're going to be covering here, because my tactics and my battles are always planned around speed, and that first devastating strike being as nasty as possible. So, here we go. So the first unit we're going to be looking at, and if you spot your miniatures on here, it's simply because I pulled them off the internet because they look amazing. So please give me your name, and I will whack it on the video, as you get full credit for it. But these are your bog standard Grey Knights. These are your bog standard. It's called a Strike Squad in the Codex. Now, I'm just going to flick to the Codex in my book. You might actually hear me flicking through it on the screen. Where are you? Oh, there we go, Strike Squad. So, Strike Squad, as it says in the Codex, contains 1 Drakkar and 4 Grey Knights, and it can have an additional 5 Grey Knights with a power rating of +7. So obviously, power rating in the game, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you know what power rating is. A Strike Squad has a power rating of 7, which actually isn't that bad. It's quite cheap. You know, it's only 1 point more than an Intercessor squad in a normal Space Marine lineup, Primaris Space Marine, and these guys have much better weaponry than a Primaris Space Marine unit. Now they have less wounds; they have 1 wound each, which means if you lose 1, you are going to feel it. Now, what we mainly use strike squads for in this tactic that I'm going to be showing you here is generally mopping up troops. These are your hardline troops. Generally, you only want 1 or 2 squads of these in your army at all. I don't really use them, to be honest with you. If I do use them, it's seldom, and I use them as mopping up troops or to hold objectives. Because in this tactic that we're going to be showing in this video, we always take Gate of Infinity, if we are allowed to, on every single grey unit we have. We want to up our mobility, we want to make sure we can be at anywhere at any point. That's what we want to make sure we can do. So that's what we're going to do, is we give squads like these Gate of Infinity. If they can actually have it, let's have a little look. A second. Yeah, so even normal Grey Knight units can have Smite, will have Smite, and can use Gate of Infinity, so that's a fantastic thing for them. Now, one thing that people don't realise is Smite for Grey Knights only deals out 1 mortal wound, which is pretty shitty, actually, considering that normally Smite deals D3 mortal wounds. Now, the drawback is quite shitty, yes, you're only dealing 1 mortal wound, but, and there is a huge asterisk there, every single Grey Knight who's not equipped with a heavy weapon like you see here is equipped with a Storm Bolter. Now, if you can deep strike within 9 inches of an enemy model, which you can as a Grey Knight if you have Gate of Infinity, you get to fire your Storm Bolter as rapid fire, and it already has 2 shots. So each of your Grey Knights is getting 4 shots from a Strength 4 AP dash Storm Bolter. Now, if you have 10 Grey Knights in this squad, which is 14 power, that's 40 shots at a unit of your choice, which is essentially better than Smite, much better than Smite. And then you throw Smite on top of that to do your mortal wound. And of course, you throw on top of that as well, there are stratagems in the game now that allow you to cast the same power twice. And I will go to that one as well. That is on the back of my book. It is Psychic Channeling. Oh no, it's not Psychic Channeling, sorry. Mental Focus. So Mental Focus allows any It's a 1 command point, and it allows any Grey Knight unit to channel and use 1 more power that turn. And it doesn't say it can't be the same power twice. So, you know, it may say in the normal rules, somebody correct me if I got that wrong, but according to this, a Grey Knight can use the same power twice in a turn. Again, this is the thing with the rules, we're not really sure which rules overrule which ones. In normal games, I don't use it like that. I use it as I can do another power, which basically means I can gate infinity and then smite, which is great. That's what we normally use normal Grey Knights for. I normally use them for mopping up, don't really do much else with them. And I seldom use them in this tactic, to be honest with you, because they're not fast enough. Gate infinity is great, but you might not cast it. You know, it costs 6. I think it costs 6. Yeah, you need to roll 6 on 2d6, which is certainly doable. But at the same time, to be honest with you, I would probably look at it as a bit of a bad one, to be honest with you. Let's see. I don't want to be. Whilst we use Gate Infinity a lot, you know, if you can minimise using it, that's great. Gate Infinity should be our fallback thing that we need to use for our normal troops, like our Grey Knight. Let's move on to our next unit. Now, our next unit is probably one of, if not my favourite Grey Knight unit. My second favourite, actually. I'm sure you can guess which one's my favourite by our tactic that we're using. But these are Grey Knight Interceptors. Now, Interceptors are a fantastic choice for this list. For this, well, not list, but this tactic that we're using. Now, Interceptors are essentially exactly the same as normal Grey Knights. Now, what they can do is they have teleportation packs on their backs, which basically means they can teleport across the field. They can basically use Gate of Infinity for free all of the time without having to roll for it. That is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. You know, and by the way, they use these teleport packs at the end of their movement phase, which means they get to move normally first, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. They move 12 inches and then they can shunt through the walk. It's absolutely incredible. They set up 9 inches away from any, so they can move 12 inches, and then if you change your mind, they can just use their jump packs and appear somewhere on the board 9 inches away from enemy models. It's great. It's great. They are literally the backbone of any list that I make. I have 2 squads of 10 of these in my current list. And their general job is to act like normal Grey Knights. They zip around the field. I split them into combat squads when I need to. They capture relics. They capture command points. You know, they capture. Oh my God, what's the name? I've forgotten the name of it. Objectives, of course. Sorry, they capture objectives. And of course, we've already gone over the Stormbolter rule that they have. You know, they can shoot 4 times, and you can split fire. So, you know, 2 units of 10 of these. That's 80 shots with a normal bolter, essentially. 80 normal bolter shots firing into someone. That's amazing. Even if it is strength 4 and no AP, that's fantastic. And by the way, they can also be equipped with Nemesis 4 swords. Now. Now, your Nemesis 4 sword, and I think the Drakkar can take every 5 models. Yes, you can also take items from the special weapons list, which means one of these can actually have a Demon Hammer. And Demon Hammer is a double strength weapon, meaning that their strength goes up to 8, and it is a -3 AP that does D6 damage, always 3, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. You know, you want to keep that guy safe. But what I normally use, instead of the hammer, I actually use Force Falchions, which is why I've selected this photo to show you, because that gives everyone in this squad +1 attack. So everyone gets two attacks. There's 10 of these. That's 20 attacks. 20 attacks at strength 4 with a -3 AP and D3 damage. That's cataclysmic. If you charge any unit with an Interceptor squad or 2. That consists of 10 men, 10 Grey Knights. They'll wipe the floor with whatever they touch. You know, these guys are the backbone of my army. I can't stress that enough. Of this list, they are absolutely fantastic. And again, they can have certain heavy weapons as well. I don't normally use them with heavy weapons, but if you want to, I would personally equip them with a silencer or a flamer. You know, the side cannon's great, but I think the amount of shots that you lay down and the things that these guys should be fighting, you really want a big amount of shots. These guys are infantry killers and elite killers. You know, these guys are people who, if you have that really pesky, horrible Terminator units that's just turned up in the field. I've had many games in the past where an enemy's Chaos Terminator Elite have turned up and they've been swamped by 10 Interceptor squads straight after they've turned up. Now, the look of these guys, it actually lulls people into a false sense of security. They just think, oh, it's just normal Grey Knights with a few extra bits on them. But those 20 attacks, you know, strength 4, so hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s, minus 3 AP, D3 damage. That 5-man, even I would even put these guys up against a 10-man Chaos Terminator unit. I think they'd win if they charged. If they charged, they'd win. And that's superb. That is absolutely superb. So again, can't stress enough. These are the backbone of my force. You know, these are the guys that I use the most of. And in my local store, we actually use special rules. We're allowed to have a special character that we've designed ourselves, and my special character is actually an Interceptor. So that's how much I love these guys. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, moving on to our next unit. It is the standard Terminator, the standard Grey Knight Terminator. Now, I don't normally use the standard Terminators, and I'll tell you why. My force is very elite, as in I make it elite, I make it my own thing, and I want them to be very low in numbers but very high in power. Now, Terminator squads come in squads of 5, which is absolutely fantastic, and again, they have all of the options that a normal Grey Knight squad does. You know, but again, the Drakkar and 25 models in the unit. Yeah, so again, the picture in the Codex is actually incorrect. So if you look at the Terminator squad, if you actually have the Codex to hand during this video, if you look at the picture, it actually shows the Terminator squad with a Force Halberd and a Demon Hammer in the squad. That is incorrect. That is illegal. Because for every 5 models in this unit, 1 Grey Knight Terminator may replace a Stormbolter with an item from the special weapons list, which is things like Demon Hammers, Force Halberds, Psy Cannons, Flamers, things like that. Essentially, these guys are normal Grey Knights in Terminator armor. They have Force Swords, they have that 1 Demon Hammer or Force Halberd, whichever you want to use, or a heavy weapon. And essentially, apart from that, they act exactly like normal Terminators. If I was going to use them, I would teleport them into battle. But apart from that, yeah, they're great. You know, they're lovely models, and they're very powerful in the game, just as powerful as a normal Terminator. But one thing they do not have that normal Terminators do have is the Storm Shield. Okay, they cannot get a 3+ invulnerable save, which is a huge issue for me. Because they cost 13 power, which is the same as the normal Terminator squad that can have 5 Thunder Hammers and 5 Storm Shields if they want, whereas my Grey Knight unit can't. It can have 1 Demon Hammer. Alright, it can cast Smite for 1 extra mortal wound per turn, and they have Storm Bolters, but still. These guys are not meant to go up and kill things with their Storm Bolters. These guys are meant to be close combat demons. They're supposed, figuratively speaking, of course, but they're supposed to be charging into combat and smashing things to absolute cinders. And I don't think, for the cost, you should really be putting up with having Force Swords in the squad. So, I actually use Paladins. Now, Paladins only come in 3-man squads. Again, low numbers, but they have 3 wounds each instead of 2, which is, you know, outstanding. Absolutely, lovely stuff. They are joined by a Paragon who hits on 2s, and And again, just like the normal Terminators, they can have the they can replace their Stormbolter with an item from the special weapons list. Now, for every 5, one of them can. Now, I think it says anyone in this squad as well. Ah, right, there you go. Yeah, I've just read through it again. Apologies, I'm going back over the Terminators again. Yeah, any model may replace his Nemesis Force Sword with an item from the melee weapons list. That minor gripe I had, out the window. Okay, that's cool. You can have all Demon Hammers if you want. Of course, you don't get all Demon Hammers in the Terminator box set. You get mostly Nemesis Force Swords. You basically get enough to make yourself a nice balanced Terminator unit with 1 Demon Hammer, 2 Force Halberds, there's 2 Dual Falchions, there's 2 and the rest of them are all Force Swords. So basically, when it comes to real life money, you'll be spending, if you want a full squad of Demon Hammer wielding Terminators, you can do that, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. So I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend having a nice balanced list. A nice balance. So 1 Demon Hammer, 1 Force Halberd. Again, sorry about that, I was reading the wrong page. But it's my first video doing one of these, so yeah, apologies. These will get better, I promise you. So, moving on from the Terminator squad, onto the Paladin squad. So the Terminator squad is now, yeah, a fantastic unit. You can have whatever weapons you want, and you can have 1 special weapon in there as well, which is normally like a silencer. We'll cover silencers in a minute when we get to our next unit after Paladins. But yeah, the thing about Grey Knight Terminators is they have 2 wounds each, which is fantastic, but at the same time, there's just something about them that I just prefer Paladins. I prefer the Paladins. There's only 3 of them in a squad, which is a bit shitty, I know. But at the same time, Paragons hitting on 2s. They can have all sorts of banners. You can actually you can make them into a mini Death Star unit if you have another 22 power lying around. Then upgrade them and have 10 Paladins in a squad, which is absolutely insane. Each Paladin has 3 attacks and 3 wounds, whereas if we look at the Grey Knight Terminators, they have 2 attacks and 2 wounds, so the extra power you're paying for is for that big smashing power that the Paladins have. There's nothing more terrifying to an opponent than seeing 2 squads of 3 Paladins dropping right on top of their most prized units and preparing to charge them. It's just the look on people's faces, it's fantastic. So yeah, that's what I always go with. Always go with the Paladins. I love the extra wounds that they have. I normally equip them with Sanctuary as well as Gate Infinity, just because I like having a 4+ invulnerable save on them. I think that's absolutely fantastic, because as Terminators, they also have the Crux Terminatus, which gives them a 5+ invulnerable save. Having that having them drop in, pop Sanctuary straight away, is a fantastic way of making sure that they're survivable, that they stay there and they can take the heat. And with those 3 wounds, that 2+ save, they're absolutely fantastic. And if they charge in with those 3 attacks, it's 3, 6, 9 attacks with Demon Hammers and Force Halberds. That's what they should be equipped with. They're just going to absolutely wreck a unit, whatever unit they touch. And of course, they still have the Stormbolters as well, which we've already covered. So that's what I normally use. Is 6 Paladins. Let's move on to our next unit, which is it is my favourite unit. And before people exclaim, oh my god, it's a baby carrier, yeah, not if you pose it correctly. What really winds me up about the way the Games Workshop show the Nemesis Dread Knight is that he's always posed like this. He's always posed like what you're seeing now. That looks like a baby carrier, and I don't blame you for thinking that's a baby carrier, but if you pose it properly, because these things are designed after the walkers on the Matrix Revolutions. If you pose them like that, like in a dynamic pose, like they're running or they've just landed, bend the knees a little bit, be creative with your model, snip the knees, bring it down so it's rear it back so he's going to be smacking something in the face with his sword. Do something, don't have it just standing there like a pleb. But my ranting aside, these are my favourite units in the Grey Knight roster. They really are. These guys are absolutely deadly, and seeing just one of them on the field is enough to make somebody quake the fucking pants. You know, I've got a little more to say about them. They're 11 power, so they're cheap as chips compared to things like a Redempted Dreadnought. They're absolutely cheap and a fantastic option to go with. Let's see what they have. Let's dive right in. So, in terms of their melee capabilities, they have a Dread Fist, which is ×2 strength and -3 AP and D3 mortal wounds. Now, sorry, D3 wounds. Now, ×2 strength means they're hitting on strength 12, which is absolutely astounding. Because of course in the game now you can go for strength 10. And they are actually a really good option. Because the only one that's better than that is actually the Nemesis Demon Greathammer. Now, the Demon Greathammer I wouldn't actually go with for the Nemesis Dread Knight, and here's why. It's strength ×2, -4 AP, and D6 damage. That's fantastic. That's really good stats there. But when a model with this weapon uses this weapon, you must subtract 1 from the hit roll. Now, that can be fixed with things like prescience and things like that, but still, you're relying on more. It's complicating your list. What I would say to you if you're building a list is try and keep it simple. Try and keep it something that you can remember. Try and make sure it has 5 or 6 different things that it can do that you can keep in your head. As soon as you start getting into 9, 10, 11, 12 things that you need to do to make sure your list is performing optimally on the tabletop, as soon as you do that, you're going to start losing games. You're going to start losing yourself in the game. And it's no fun. You know, you want 5 or 6 things at tops that you need to remember about your list so you can really enjoy the tactical side of the game and bantering with your opponent and making sure that you're having a really good time. So, the Nemesis Demon Greathammer subtracts 1 from its rolls to hit, which is not great, to be honest with you. I mean, he gets 4 attacks when he's at full strength, when he's at full wounds. So let's just say, on average, you're hitting twice. Now, you always do 3 damage when you roll that d6 for the Nemesis Demon Hammer, but it's not enough. It's not enough. This guy is a wrecking ball, an absolute wrecking ball. So I just don't think that's enough. I really don't. What I normally use on my Dread Knights nowadays, especially in 8th edition, I used to use the Demon Hammer back in the day when it would hit normally and ignore all menaces for having one. Is the Nemesis Greatsword. I actually use that nowadays. Simply because it's +4 strength, so it's strength 10. It is -3 AP, just like the Dread Fist, but it does D6 damage to the D3, so it's better than the Dread Fist, hands down. You can make 1 additional attack with the Dread Fist, but I just think the Nemesis Dreadsword, it does 2 things. Number 1, it lets you hit normally with all 4 of your attacks at strength 10, -3 AP, and you're very rarely going to need, very rarely going to need strength 12 weapon, very rarely. Let's say if you're fighting a Land Raider, for instance, its toughness is 8, so unless you have a strength of 16, you're not going to be wounding it on 2s, you're going to be wounding it on 3s. So that extra 2 strength doesn't really do that much, to be honest with you. Most of the things your Dread Knight wants to be fighting, it wants to be doing it. It wants to be going up against really big meaty things. And really big meaty things are generally toughness 8 and above, or toughness 7 and above. And unless they're toughness 6, you're not wounding it on 2s. So the Nemesis Greatsword, yeah, strength 10. So strength +4 is already strength 6, so strength 10. -3 AP, D6 damage. That's all you want. That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. Now, what I normally do with my list is I have 1 Nemesis Dread Knight, who's just a normal Nemesis Dread Knight, who has a weapon skill of 3+, and the other Nemesis Dread Knight I have is actually a Grand Master, because we can do that now in the Grey Knight Codex, which is awesome. You have a Grand Master in a Nemesis Dread Knight, which is brilliant. It's something that really was missing from the last Codex and the last rule set in general. He can have a 4+ invulnerable save, and all units within 6 inches of him can reroll 1s to hit, which is amazing. He also has a weapon skill of 2+. So this is the guy that you might want to actually equip with the Nemesis Demon Greathammer, because he hits on the 2+, now he's hitting on 3s, it's -1. You know, this guy can be an absolute beast in close combat. In fact, he is an absolute beast in close combat. And both the Dread Knights I've been talking about come with Dread Knight teleporters, which basically means, I think it's once per game. Yeah, so once per game, it just means that they can attack from deep striking. They can deep strike onto the field now. This is why at the start of the game I keep my Dread Knights off the field. They're not on the field. They are part of that vector strike that I'm going to talk about in a second. They're kept off the field, and as soon as I've identified what really needs to die in the opponent's half of the battlefield, that's where they strike in, and they immediately charge, leading everything into that unit. Now, you can actually have a Gatling Silencer and a heavy side cannon on the Dread Knight. What I wouldn't advise you do nowadays is use the heavy incinerator, and that's for a very specific reason. Back in 7th edition, your Torrent Flamer, your Torrent Incinerator, you could shoot the incinerator like it was a napalm, basically. And it was very high strength. It was strength 5, I think, on strength 6. And it could cover as many models as you want with that lovely template. And you could change its direction as well. So it was actually a wonderful piece of weaponry. Nowadays, though, it's just D6 hits. That's actually no better. Let's see if it is, actually. I don't think that's any better than a normal flamer, to be honest. I don't think it is. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong in this video before, so give me 1 second. Gatling Silencer, heavy incinerator. Well, it's heavy D6, so yeah, again, it's just D6, and it's -1 and does 2 damage. That 2 damage is great, it's lovely, but it just doesn't give that stopping power that you really want. The strength 6 is great. The strength 6 I really do enjoy. But what I would actually use is a Gatling Silencer. Now, the very good reason for this, the Gatling Silencer gets 12 shots instead of D6, which is phenomenal. And if you equip it on a Grandmaster in a Nemesis Dread Knight, he actually gets to hit on 2s. So yeah, it's an incredible weapon. It's only strength 4 and has an AP of nothing. So AP dash, they get their full save, but each one that goes through is D3 damage. You know, it is a big monster killer. Your range weaponry for Dread Knights is generally meant to soften up targets before they hit the final blow. Heavy Side Cannon will do a similar job, but it gets 6 shots, it's strength 7, and it's -1 AP and 2 damage. So all 3 of the options are pretty well balanced against each other. But for how we're going to play in this system, a Gatling Silencer is the best thing to use, followed closely by a Heavy Side Cannon, and followed after that by a Heavy Incinerator. Simply because these guys are not going to be charging your run-of-the-mill infantry units that the Incinerator will slaughter. They're going to be using their weaponry to ping off wounds from bigger enemies. Alright, you're going to struggle to wound an Imperial Knight with a Gatling Silencer, but hey, who knows? You can roll a 6, and there's D3 damage if he fails his wounds. It's fine. It's all good. It's all great. So that's why the Nemesis Dread Knights are pretty much my favourite units in the Grey Knight arsenal at the moment. They pack a hell of a punch, and they are basically the vanguards of this tactic I'm going to be showing you in a second. So we're moving on to our next one, which is our characters. Now, our characters in the Grey Knights, they're okay. Our named characters pack a hell of a smack to the face. I mean, Voldus, for instance, has a demon hammer that doesn't have a minus to hit. It doesn't have a -1 to hit, it just hits normally. So it's strength 8, -3 AP, and straight 3 damage. He is an absolute beast in combat, and he knows a hell of a lot of psychic abilities as well. But, to be honest with you, you can also create your own Grandmaster, which is great. You can actually go and create your own Grandmaster with his own weaponry from the Codex as well, with his 4+ invulnerable save. These are essentially your chapter masters of different Space Marine chapters. But what I actually do use, if I was going to use one, and I don't use very many HQ choices, apart from the Grandmaster in the Dread Knight armor, is the Librarian. Librarian is a fantastic unit for just holding around your paladins. Normally I run the 6 paladins split into 2 squads of 3 with a librarian in between them with Gate Infinity. They all Gate Infinity forward together, and they all buff each other when they get there as well. So I think you can actually upgrade the fact of the... You can actually upgrade the librarian so you can cast 3 psychic powers a turn, which is ridiculously good. With the Library of Demonica, I think. Let me just have a look on the back of the book. I think that is a thing, though. Oh no, that's completely changed now. It's just a nasty demon thing that's against demons. That's a bit rubbish. But now, yeah, he still gets to manifest 2 psychic powers, so he can still Gate Infinity forward with the paladins and then buff one of them with Gate Infinity, and as long with Sanctuary, sorry. And as long as he stays behind the units, he's not going to be targeted either, which is great. He's also no slouch in close combat too. He can replace his weapon with anything from the melee weapons list, and he can take a Storm Bolter or a combi weapons list. So he can have a combi Melter, he can have a combi anything that he wants that comes with his profile as well. So you could easily give him a Demon Hammer just to make him that extra bit of a bastard in close combat. Apart from that, he has his 2+ save, he has his 2+ to hit, 2+ to hit in both ranged and close combat. He's a great character, absolutely great character to have with your Grey Knight force. The other character I have is actually Grandmaster, a normal Grandmaster. Now, I equip mine with well, it depends. If I'm playing in the store, I have my special Grandmaster who has a special sword, written by myself, which is what we play in store. We're allowed to have that one unit and that one character that we wrote especially for our forces. But if I'm playing in a tournament, or if I'm playing in a league or something, or somebody I don't know, I'll use the normal Grandmaster. 4+ invulnerable save makes him absolutely fantastic. If you equip him with Sanctuary as well, he can go down to a 3+ invulnerable save, which is brilliant. And he can manifest 2 psychic powers a turn. So again, we give him Gate Infinity, we give him Sanctuary, and we bust him up the table. We bust him up the table straight away. And he's very much like the Librarian. In fact, he's nearly identical to the Librarian. In fact, he is identical to the Librarian. So those are 2 really cool characters that I use to buff my paladins, and that is my big, you can call it a Death Star in inverted commas if you really want to, but for me, they're fantastic. They back up the paladins, they get in there, and they make sure that the job is done when they get there as well. Now, the last person we're going to talk about is Lord Kaldor Drago. Now, Matt Ward's machinations aside, I think Kaldor Drago is fucking cool, but one second. I also don't think he's the Silver Knight of Slaanesh, no matter what people say. So, Kaldor Drago is the beast. He is the beast of the Grey Knight Codex. He is absolutely amazing. He can manifest 2 psychic powers, which is really where the meat of the Grey Knight Codex comes into fruition. Because this man, unlike every other Grey Knight in the arsenal, has a Storm Shield. That makes him incredibly dangerous to any enemy that he comes across. So he does a lot of wounds against demons wherever he goes. He's doing wounds against demons. And to be honest with you, I'm going to skip the demon part for a while, because 90% of the time you're not going to be playing demons. It takes a very, very, very brave demon player to play a Grey Knight list, to be honest with you, from my instance. I've played 2 in 10 years. So, as a Chapter Master, you can reroll all failed hit rolls when they're within 6 inches of Lord Kaldor Drago, which is great. And Warp Emergence basically means he has the Deep Strike rule, like everyone else. His Storm Shield gives him a 3+ invulnerable save. Now, if we equip him with Sanctuary, he gets 2+ invulnerable save. And he has 7 wounds. 7 wounds. 2+ and 7 wounds. He is a titan. An absolute titan on the battlefield. Which brings us to his weapon, the Titan Sword. Which is a +4 strength, so strength 8, -4 AP. 3 damage, straight 3 damage sword. He's hitting on 2s, and normally, let's be honest, he'll be wounding on 2s or 3s. That's a -4 AP, so hardly anything's ever going to get a save against him, and he's doing 3 damage. He is an absolute bastard in combat. He's absolutely fantastic. He's 12 power as well, and 12 power is 1 more power than a Dread Knight, which is quite cheap for someone of his caliber. He is a Guilliman killer, quite frankly. If Kaldor Drago charges Guilliman, Guilliman dies. That's just how it is. You know, he might come back, but you'll fucking die the first time. So, yeah, he's an absolute beast. I don't use him myself because he's a bit expensive, and I already have a Grandmaster and a Librarian. But I am strongly considering getting him and trying to find room for him in my list because I love him as a model. I wish he came out with a new model because the resin one is a bit static for me. I love swirling characters in motion, but you know, I will find use from some stage. Using Kaldor Drago, we use him exactly like the Grandmaster and the Librarian, except he deep strikes in. Doesn't appear on the. We don't deploy him on the tabletop. Because in lore, he steps out with a warp. That's what he does. So you make sure that happens all the time. So, moving on from Lord Kaldor Drago, we're going to come to our actual tactics page. Now, this is very rough, so forgive me. You know, it's the first time I've done one of these, so bear with me. So, the tactic itself is called the Turn 2 Hammer. And it's called the Turn 2 Hammer because most of our damage, most of our nasty stuff comes in at Turn 2. Now, there's a very good reason for it being Turn 2. That's because I normally run my list with a Storm Raven, and Storm Raven comes onto the field at Turn 2. I don't have him coming on. I don't have it on the field at the start of the game because I don't want to risk it having its mobility shot down, having its mobility lessened, or even worse, shot down entirely. So I zoom it on at the end of Turn 2, which as it states in the rules. So, Turn 1 in our game is our 50% of our force, which has to deploy in the battlefield, will be hunkered down in cover. So it'll be down inside of ruins, inside of craters, all sorts of things to try and minimize the line of sight of the enemy, and to make sure that basically, you know, we survive the first turn. Okay, we basically cede the first turn to the opponent. You know, they can do what they want. You are Grey Knights, okay? So no one is going to want to deep strike and charge you. You know, it's just, you know, if they do, then good luck to them. It has happened to me before. But with a Turn 2 Hammer, the way that it works, you know, if they do that, then they're caught between a hammer and anvil, which, as you'll see. But the anvil is the force that deploys at the start of the game, which is normally I keep my paladins, one of my paladin squads, and my 2 interceptor squads are on the field at the start of the battle, as well as one of my HQ choices, which basically means that 50% of my force is in cover. It's deployed on the battlefield, so it's illegal, and yeah, it stays where it's meant to be staying. It just stays in cover, and it survives with Sanctuary if possible. So, Turn 2 is where all shit hits the fan. So, normally, around about this time, your opponent has come forward a little bit, they've taken some pot shots, you've taken a few casualties, maybe 3 or 4 interceptors, and maybe 1 or 2 wounds from one of your paladins. Now, the teleport strike happens, so everyone moves forward, and I mean everyone. By this stage, after everything's shot at you the once, this is what's really cool about this tactic. Your opponent has a full turn to shoot at you. So if you don't have very much experience fighting, say, Tyranids or fighting, say, Tau, you know where the things you need to kill are now, because they've shot at you once, and where the really painful shit came from, you know that's what needs to die. We are a decapitation force. We get in quick, we kill the biggest, nastiest thing the opponent has, and we bug out again. So we teleport strike everything around the nastiest forces the enemy has, and we concentrate our fire. Everything fires at that, we ignore everything else. So let's just say that there's 2 Storm Surges in the centre of the table, surrounded by 6 stealth suits from the Tau Empire. We literally go for that. We ignore the Fire Warriors and the Pathfinders on either side, we ignore the Devilfishes, we ignore the Hammerheads, we ignore all that bullshit, and we go for the jugular. We try and neutralise the main threat of the enemy, because when it's gone, it's going to wobble around. It's going to wobble around like a fucking body on a leash. So, okay. So, After that, we use Gate of Infinity to bring the original units into the face of the enemy. So, again, all the units are anvil now and becomes part of the hammer. So Gate of Infinity is straightforward, it buffs itself, they buff all themselves with Sanctuary, and everyone charges. This is where your Dread Knights drop in, and everyone charges. Everyone charges that part of the line, the enemy line, that really needs to die, that really needs to go. Now, 1 second. It's going to just... Sorry about that. Yeah, so at this point in time, most of your units should now be in combat, and you should be dealing horrific damage to whatever the main force of the enemy is. Now, sometimes an enemy is very brave and decides to charge you instead. Now, let's not forget, you have 6 paladins there. You're not going to be wiped off the table in a single turn. Your anvil will hold the line. It will stand there, it will hold the line. And as it does, you just change your tactics. Your teleport strike comes near your own deployment zone, and you catch the enemy in a pincer movement and destroy them. But let's be honest, you've still got Gate of Infinity. You teleport strike down, you smack into the enemy then has their turn, then you just Gate of Infinity, and you take the turn 2 hammer and you do it all over again. That's literally all you need to do. So after that, we're going to go for the next part, which is, by the way, if you hear an advert now, it's because I've actually got the music on in the background. I have to record this in, what is it, in XSplit, in full screen mode, because for some reason it doesn't like doing PowerPoint presentations. So, turn 3, we continue the onslaught, okay? We harass with support units like the Storm Raven. The Storm Raven has come on now at the end of turn 2 and has been firing and weakening up targets for your Grey Knights. We Gate Infinity Grey Knight units onto objectives, if there are any, or to enemies with firing potential. So any of the things that are basically advancing up the field away from your main onslaught, you use your normal Grey Knight units just to go and mop them up, essentially, to try and whittle them down with Stormbolter fire. Again, using Gate of Infinity to zip around the board as quickly as possible to be exactly where you need to be when you need it to be there. By turn 4, most of the hitting power of the enemy should be dead or crippled. So at this stage, your Dread Knights, your Paladins, everything has had 2 full turns to get to grips with the enemy. If they're not dead by now, chances are you might not be winning this battle because the dice have gone completely against you. But we should also be saving our command point rerolls, things like that, to help us through and to make sure that we can actually duke down and smash apart these central units that the enemy holds so dear. We prioritise our targets. We've overloaded the really cool stuff that the enemy has brought to bear on us with so much damage, with so much stuff that they can't stand. They can't stand. And if they can, it's either because they've been very lucky in killing you off before you've got there, or they've been very lucky in saving a lot of their units with saving throws. But generally, I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm going to level with you guys. I have played this year, since 8th edition's come out. Let me just get my little booklet out. Hang on. Let's have a little look here. Okay, so... Okay, in 43 games, and you can call me a bullshitter if you want, I've won 39. Okay? Drawn 2, lost 1. Since 8th edition, with Grey Knights. So, and that one was against Dark Angels, and the guy got incredibly lucky. Very lucky, indeed. He played an amazing game, but even he said, yeah, my rolls were just great. And they were, and he deserved to win, hands down. But yeah, you can call me bullshit if you want, but that's the truth. I've won a lot of games with this tactic. Because this is what the Grey Knights are built around. That's why 140,000 is so epically fucking cool. Is because every single faction has its thing. And if you play to your potential, if you play your thing, you'll win games. You will win games. This is what the Grey Knights are meant to do. I've just taken them and twisted up a little bit. So again, we use Gate Infinity to teleport where needed, to lay down fire and basically charge and mop up the remnants of the enemy. By this stage, let's take our Tau example. His Crisis Battlesuit are certainly gone. You know, one of his Storm Surges, if we've gotten a bit lucky, is gone completely, and the other one is down to about half health. But normally, the 2 Storm Surges are either in combat, and they are now on little health. They're on, like, you know, they're on a couple of wounds each. At this point, the Tau player can either charge his units in to that melee or try and mop up everything else on the table, which is going to be really difficult because, you know, with Grey Knights we have power armor at the end of the day. And with the Storm Raven flying overhead, it should now be choosing its targets, picking its targets off with the las cannons and the melters and the bolters, the insane amount of bolter shots it gets. You know, you really should be mopping up at this stage. And by turn 5, you should be absolutely, you know, those Storm Surges should be dead. And now you're moving on to the rest of the opponent's army, which is rapidly crumbling because its main backbone, the head of the force, has been cut off. And this works against every single faction out there. I cannot stress enough how much it works. Because we're about decapitation, we're about going for the jugular, we're about going for the head and cutting it off as Grey Knights. That's what we do. And if you follow what I've said, you know, you won't lose many games. You know, and if you do, you've been insanely unlucky. Again, call me bullshit if you want, say I'm wrong, that's fine. But I've won a lot of games with this, and I wanted to share it with everyone. Because I love this game, and I love this army, and they are my favourite. There will be other tactics videos coming up. I think the next one I'm going to be scheduling is basically I'm going to do all the new codexes, essentially, that are out at the moment. So that is Tyranids, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, and I think that's it at the moment. I might be missing one. Oh, it's Blood Angels and Dark Angels as well. So I'll be going over all of those. I've got full access to all of the codexes, so I'll be doing them one at a time. So this week, I think we will be doing the Blood Angels, which is what I want to do next, and then we'll move on to a Xenos race. So we'll be doing probably Eldar after that as well, or I might change it up and do Eldar. We'll see. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. And again, you know, I fully understand if you disagree with me. That's fine. But please, if you do disagree with me, I always want to learn. Tell me, like say, what do you do with your Grey Knights? What success stories do you have? And what failures do you have? You know, I mean, what real drawbacks do you see to the Grey Knights? I mean, there are drawbacks. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys.